Hi friends, it's Nancy. It's the 1st of January. I feel a million times better than I did yesterday. I've had 3 doses of antibiotics. I had a fairly good sleep last night, so I'm feeling a little more peppy, I guess you could say. And I did not ring in the new year. I think I was in bed at 7:30, and I slept and slept and slept till about 5:30. Got up, took my pills, had some coffee, went back to bed. So I have blown my nose. I've had a big cough, so hopefully I won't have to do any of that while we're working on this tutorial. So I want to show you 2 different methods of doing ruffles that are very flat. So they're not going to take up a lot of, they're not going to give you a lot of chunkiness in your junk journal. So there's a couple of different methods, and I have one example that's in a book, although the book isn't put together yet. So we'll just slip to that page right there. So I actually screwed up this page by sewing 2 pages at the same time. So I had to pick out all the sewing and then cover that up. So I attached the ruffle to a piece of paper and then flipped the paper over onto the other side and then stitched it down. So I'll show you from the side, and you can see that it's relatively low volume, and it does stick out marginally from the book. Can you believe I'm still doing Christmas journals? Maybe I'll do a flip through this when it's done. Anyway, let's get started. So we'll do both ways of doing it. Here's a couple of examples that I have. This one is just fabric, and I pinked the edges. This one is layers of lace, ruffle. There's a little bit of, it's not cheesecloth, but it's like that book binding kind of stuff, and then a trim on top. This one is ribbon, eyelet lace, a ruffle. This blue fabric is a ruffle, and then some trim on top, and it's really flat. And then this one's really grungy, messy. So it's lace, a really grungy ruffle, some more tatted lace, and then a piece of doily on top. So these are varying lengths, and you can cut them down. This is actually 2 pieces of fabric because I didn't have a piece long enough. But all right, so let's talk about how we're going to do this. We need fabric. Fabric I've got coming out the hoo-ha. So I want to do some blue journals, and these fabrics here are strips of cotton, vintage cotton, that I have torn and then coffee dyed, and that I find that more effective. Like, can you see on the frayed edge how the coffee really seeps into that frayed edge? So I find stripping then dyeing more effective. This one was very white, and I dyed it then stripped it, so it doesn't have the same concentration of the coffee color along the edge, and that's okay. I like it. It was very white, and now it is very creamy. I like it a lot. So that's a couple of coffee dyed ones. This was actually a printed quilt in a, what do you call that, wedding ring pattern. So I just tore some strips of that. That's not coffee dyed. These are things that I've gotten at thrift stores, etc. So this fabric was already cut into strips. Somebody had started a quilt project. I'll be tearing those down. Look at this gorgeousness. That is old. And here's some I think this is an old nightgown or something. This has not been dyed, but it's a nice color, and it really has that shabby chic vibe with the little powder blue rosebuds in there. So I've got a couple of varieties of that. You're going to need that, and you're going to need your board. So to do the wraparound one, you're going to take your fold, and I just want you to, at a 1/2 inch, bring it down so you can see, at a 1/2 inch, just score that. Okay, and then cut it off at 3/4 inch. Okay, and then give that a fold. So this is very lightweight card, sort of like a double-sided scrapbook paper kind of weight. I have no idea what this was, just in my scrap bin. The other variety, not the wraparound variety, is I just use this scrap of a file folder. Let's get a straight edge. And I just want like less than 1/2 inch. Like really 3/8 inch. It's going to be just fine. You don't need to use a board to do this. You can use scissors. That's fine too. Okay. So we've got both of them. Oh, there's my folder right there beside my right hand. Silly girl. Okay. So here we have the file folder. This is going to be the flat one that looks like that. Okay. Then you see I've stitched that. Okay, just going to relocate the paper, make sure I'm in frame. So you got your glue stick. This one is All-Purpose Craft Bond by Elmer's. So just run a rather thick bead. Again, under here is finger paint paper. Okay. And then grab up the piece that you want to use. You don't have to have like a full 42-inch strip. You're going to find that you don't need that much at all because you're not doubling it. So just kind of find the end and then just start to pleat it, and it doesn't have to remain completely straight. You can make it a little wobbly if you want. And if the glue starts to get dry, just lift up the remaining fabric and give it another dose. That's got a big wrinkle in it. That looks nice. I suppose if you wanted to, you could measure everything and mark it all out and make it perfect. That's not what I'm going for. So once this is all done, I'm going to run a little zigzag stitch right down the center, and I will do it from the back so that my foot doesn't catch any of the ruffles. And so far I haven't had any problem with any of the ruffles getting jammed down into the guts of the sewing machine. If you don't have a sewing machine, you don't need to sew. It looks really nice without stitching. If you want to hand sew some stitches, the idea that there's card behind that is perfect. Maybe I'll give that a shot. Goodness knows I have lots of threads. Give that a little more glue. So you can leave it or stitch it, and you can either use it plain or you can layer up lace or ribbons or little charms, little applique cutouts from doilies, whatever you want. And if you just, want to make some stuff to sort of have on hand, these can be cut really easily. You just cut them. Okay, so there's that one. I'm really happy with that. Okay, so you just cut it. Beautiful. What one will we do next? Let's do this. So the fabric, this one hasn't been dyed or stained in any way, and I want it about 1 inch wide. That seems reasonable. And somebody has rotary cut this, so it's it gets thin, it gets wide, it gets thin, it gets wide. So this is all going to be useless until it gets to about 1 inch wide here. So let's give that a rip. You can keep these scraps like this one. That might be fun on something else. Or you could make a really, really tiny ruffle. I bet you I could. So that's about 1/2 inch. Okay, I'm gonna keep that. See what I can do with making a really tiny, tiny ruffle. Okay, so this one has not been stained. And this one I'm gonna do wraparound. Okay, so you're only putting the glue on the 1/2 inch piece, and the 1/4 inch. This is the 1/2 inch. This is the 1/4 inch. So on the narrower part of the fold, you're putting the glue. Okay, and do your best to keep it centered on that 1/4. Okay. So I hope that you can see how I'm just kind of pinching and pushing, pinching and pushing, pinching, pushing. So a good source for scraps is old clothing. Go to the thrift store and look at babies' clothing. It's usually a lot cheaper. They have tiny prints, and you don't have to have a lot, So look at baby clothing. Look at a lot of thrift stores around here sell bags of fabric for quilt projects. I think I've mentioned many times in my videos that I live in an area where there's a very high low German Mennonite Amish population. So there's a lot of women who are quilters. Sorry, just grabbing a tissue, get my little nose a little white. So there's often lots of incompleted quilting projects that end up in plastic bags at the thrift stores for little or nothing, and oftentimes it's very like these were from a bag of quilt scraps. They're cut, but like they're still fun. I could have a lot of fun. Look at this one with the daisies. So you could still have a lot of fun with these little pieces. So for sure take a look at those. And again, I'm not making this one for any particular book right now, but it'll be nice to have on hand. I'll stitch it from the back, just like the previous one, along the narrower edge. So I've got that done. I'll cut this off. And then, do you see the full line? So I'm going to zigzag along this 1/4 inch piece of cardstock. Well, this wasn't cardstock. This was like paper. This one was card from a folder. This one was like a heavy paper, because you want to be able to, once this is stitched, fold this over and adhere it to the edge of your page. So it's got a couple fibers stuck to this side, but that and if you know what page you're going to use, you could choose a color that will coordinate or will hide into that that page. What do you think of that? So you can either stitch this now or wait till it's on the page and stitch it in one fell swoop along here, which is what I did in the Christmas one. So I waited until the card was glued on to the opposite page, and then I stitched here with a zigzag. Or you can stitch it now and just put it in your stash. So that's all I wanted to show you right now. I will fuss around with this for a little bit and come back and show you. Oh gosh, I'm really in love with that. I'll come back and show you what I've done with them, okay? Hang on. So I want to show you one more technique before I give you the final reveal. And again, I've started the thing without having my tool that I need. Where's my little awl? Well, this will do. This is a tool from my Cricut. Oh, okay, so this again, this is 3/8 of an inch of heavier paper. I've got the fabric glued on, but I want to add some stitches to it. So I've got this little tool that I'm going to poke some holes into the cardstock so I know where to put my stitches. I want to make little cross stitches, so I'm going to do 2 rows of dots. Of course, you do not have to be as exact as this. You can just randomly put in stitches, which will be very effective too. But I'm going to do this, and when it's all set, I'll be back and I'll let you know. Okay, so the cross stitching worked out really good. But I thought I'd come back on and show you how I'm going to add some lace to this. Also give you a tip. When you're out thrifting or garage sailing or whatever, look for cross-stitch kits. Like, there's no sense in paying $1 for a skein of floss when you can get all kinds of colors, all kinds of embroidery floss for next to nothing. So that's what I pulled from there. So I've got this doily, and Lorraine, I know you're crying over there because I've cut apart doilies, but really this was already missing the center part of it. It had fabric in the middle, and that was just trash, so that had to go. But look, it's being reloved, Lorraine. Lorraine is a very old friend of mine, and I've had some great adventures with her. 2 of the best trips of my life are with Lorraine. The first one was when we went out to Portland, Maine. We had a blast. And the other one was we went to Gatlinburg. We went to Tennessee. The best person in the world to travel with. Anyway, I just want to show you how I'm going to trim this down. So I think I want this little row of flowers. So I'm going to keep this crochet line, this row of flowers. So I'm just going to trim this at the petal and at this chain, and just cut them enough for what you need, because the next time you might want, you know, 2 rows of flowers and cut that part off it, you know. And yes, if you were to wash this or play with it or whatever, it would probably fall apart because it's not knotted. It's got very vulnerable fibers. This is taking longer than I thought it would. And yeah, it will fall apart, but you're not going to do that. Once it's glued into your book, it's going to be just fine. Plus, the raw edge is probably going to be against glue anyway. I will be using Fabri-Tac for the glue. And while I talk about glue, I use the glue stick to do the ruffle. Don't try to use Fabri-Tac to do the ruffle. It will not work. You need to have time to play. Okay, you need time to play, and the Fabri-Tac will just set up way too fast. Okay. So, you want to have the front of the lace facing. So this is, if you can't tell the difference between the front and the back, it doesn't really matter. I can tell that this is the front because on the back, the petals are very rounded, so that's the wrong side of the lace. If you can't tell, then don't worry about it. It will make me crazy if I glue this with the wrong side out. So, just sort of test this out. So I think I just want the second line of crochet on the edge of that. Yeah, that's just going to peek out perfect. Okay, let's get the Fabri-Tac. And, whoops, got a glue goober. Run a narrow bead down this very, very edge. Make sure I got the front facing. And I'm just going to go over a little bit so that it's not too raggedy on the end. I'll trim the lace down. For somebody who's going for shabby chic look, I've got a lot of ideas about how to get things perfect, don't I? Give that a little stretch. Just hold that for a minute just so the glue will set up. What do you think of that? I think that's beautiful. So I'm going to trim off here and here, and here and here. Now you can do more. You can do another roll of lace on that side. That would be okay. Wait a second. No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm just going to pull this a bit further out. Because I am looking for perfection. The overthinker in me is taking over. Something else I thought about. I've got these little porcelain pieces that I took out of earrings. So they're old earrings, you know, like twisty, clampy kind. And with a pair of pliers, I was able to pull the frames off and pop these little things out. They're just glued in. And I thought, like, that would be really sweet. Now that one's too small. It gets lost in the fabric. But, you know, maybe if I put like a little frame of some kind around it. This one isn't going to get lost. That one's giant. I don't like that one as well. This one I don't like because it has the yellow. But I just wanted to show you another option. So look for those when you're out thrifting. Don't pay very much for them. What else did I do? Oh, this one is not floral, and it has no lace. I used little quilt squares. They were 2.5-inch quilt squares. I ripped them into 1-inch strips. I think there's 3 of them here all together. And then I glued the, no, I didn't glue them on. I stitched on these buttons. Now these buttons, this came from a necklace. And this was 3 strands of these shell buttons just tied onto string. So all I had to do was cut the string to get the buttons out. I think they are fantastic. And I've used them in other projects before. I got these buttons out, and I was thinking maybe I would use these, but this has a lower profile. These little shell buttons have a much lower profile than the manufactured buttons. These are much deeper, and I'm going for low profile. Okay, and the other one that I did that was a little different, this one's just a little shorty, and I used random cross stitches on there, and this little piece of card with the word friend on it, this came in Happy Mail from, I believe it came from Miss Stone Home. And so I I trimmed it down, it was a little bit big, and I added this charm and some of that old lace from this doily. So I thought, you know, that would be nice on a pocket, like the edge of a pocket. Could be just a nice collage on a page. I'm happy with that. Okay, now I am going to clean up my mess and come back for a final look through it. Okay, so just a reminder, these three ruffles, they have no machine stitching in them at all. They're all hand stitches. And again, you don't have to put any stitches in at all. All right, now to the other ones that do have stitches. So this one, I cut the edge off this doily. It has stains, it's got holes, but the lace is in still pretty good shape, and I do intend to use some of this embroidery in my junk journals, but I cut off the edge and adhered that to the back. I'm not going to stitch this until this is wrapped around a page, and once this is wrapped around a page, then I will stitch down this piece of card, down this strip of card, exactly like I did in the Christmas journal that I showed you at the beginning. This one has some doily that I've cut off. I'm really happy with how that turned out. It's really raggedy. This one was coffee dyed, but this was coffee dyed without being stripped. So it was coffee dyed fabric, then ripped into strips. This one that we just put the cross stitches on, this was coffee dyed after it was ripped into strips. And you can see, I think you can see how the coffee really concentrates in that fiber. And it's almost like inking the edge of paper, isn't it? But this one just has a really nice cream color thanks to that coffee bath. And this one, I wanted to show you that you didn't have to have long strips. So again, this was a bunch of 2.5-inch squares that looked like that. Whoops, throwing it around the room. Looked like that. I just tore it into 1-inch strips, and I think there's probably 4 on there. And the doily, it kind of has a bit of a ruffled edge because it was round, and then when I cut it off and glued it to the back, some of the fullness remains, so the doily edge has a bit of a ruffle, which I really like. So again, I hope that this was easily understood. I hope that you'll give this a chance to decorate your junk journals. I hope that you'll remember that it doesn't have to be feminine. It can be a little more low-key. And if you do make this, if you do make one of these or some of these or lots of these, I hope you'll share the photos with me. I'd really like to see what you make. So if you will post on Instagram and tag me at Wishes and Weeds, then I would be able to take a look at it, and that would just make my day. Happy New Year to everybody, and I'm looking forward to doing more junk journaling and crafting and tutorials in 2019.